Hi people, this video is about dividing polynomials. And before we can understand how to divide polynomials, we need to understand how to actually do long division first because they're related. Long division with numbers is going to be the same thing that we do for long division with polynomials. So if you look, we have this example right here. I want to figure out how many times 4 goes into 1,195. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to set up my long division. And essentially what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to break this up into pieces. So first I see how many times 4 goes into 1. It doesn't go into 1. So we see how many times 4 goes into 11. Our answer right here is 2 times. So now that we know that 4 goes into 11 2 times, we're going to multiply the 2 by the 4. We end up getting 8, and then we subtract the 8. When you subtract the 8 from the 11, you get a 3, and then we bring down the 9. And actually, I'm going to also bring down the 5 because it's going to help when we get into our variables, okay? So now the next thing I need to do is see, well, how many times does 4 go into 39? Well, it can go in 9 times without going over because 9 times 4 is 36. So I do 9 times 4, and I end up getting 36, and then I subtract those values. Well, 39 minus 36 ends up being 3, and then I bring down this 5 right here. And then I'm going to see, well, how many times does 4 go into 35? And 4 goes into 35 8 times. And then we do 8 times 4, which is 32. Subtract those values, we get a 3 as our remainder. So that means that 1,195 divided by 4 is going to be equal to 298 with a remainder of 3. So 298 plus 3 extra pieces out of 4. Or in other words, we would just say it's 298 and 3/4. So why am I talking about this basic concept that you learned in elementary school? Because we're now going to apply this to variables. But before we do that, we can also say, because 1,195 divided by 4 is this 298 and 3/4, we can also say that if I take 298, multiply it by 4, I would end up getting right here 1,192. Okay, but if I add this 3, this remainder to it, then I would get 1195. Okay, so quick note, I want you to realize right here that this is the quotient and that this is the remainder. So why are we doing this? Because right here, we're going to apply this to variables. So just like we did before, what we're going to do is we're going to take this dividend, the number that we're dividing, we're going to put that inside underneath our long division symbol, okay? And then we're going to take our divisor, which is like this 4 right here, and we're going to put that on the side to show that we are dividing by x minus 3. Okay? What I want you to do though when we're doing this is I only want you to focus on this term when we're trying to figure out what's going to go up here. Okay, again, we're only going to focus on this term when we're going to try to figure out what the quotient is. It doesn't mean that we're going to ignore the -3. It just means we're going to focus on the x only when we're trying to find the quotient. Okay, so I'll tell you what I mean by that right now. So essentially what I want to do right here is I want to figure out, just like before, I broke this up. I started with 11, right? I wanted to figure out, well, how many times does 4 go into this 11 right here? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this x, and I'm going to see how many times it goes into 3x cubed. So I've got two different ways that I can look at this. I can either take 3x cubed and divide it by x, and I can see that I would get 3x squared. Why would I do that? Because right here, if I put 3x squared right here, then I can distribute this 3x squared to both of these terms right here. And when I distribute it to the x, I end up getting 3x cubed, which means that when I subtract this out, these will cancel out, which will help me with my division, just like I subtracted 11 minus 8 and got that 3. Okay, but then I also distribute the 3x squared to the -3, and I get minus 9x squared. Okay. Or another way you can think about this is, what can I multiply x minus 3 by? So what can go in front of this x minus 3 to be able to get this 3x cubed right here? right? And the only thing that I can multiply through here is this 3x squared. And then when I distribute that through, I get 3x cubed minus 9x squared, which is what I wrote down right here, okay? But I'm going to continue to do it this way. I just want to give you both options. Okay, now remember up here, we had to subtract this 8 right here from the 11. So I'm going to do the same thing. I have to subtract this 3x cubed minus 9x squared from this 3x cubed minus 5x squared. But I'm subtracting the entire expression, this entire expression right here. So I have to make sure that I distribute that negative through. So really, this becomes 3x cubed minus 3x cubed, which cancels out, okay? So I've got no x cubed. But now here I'm doing minus 5x squared minus negative 9x squared. So I'm going to write this on the side. So essentially, this is what we're doing. But minus a negative turns into a positive. So this would end up becoming positive 4x squared. And then we just bring everything down. Okay? And I'm really sorry. I think I lost this 3x squared right here. I didn't mean to erase that. Okay, and now I'm going to repeat this entire process all over again. But now this time, just like right here, when we brought down this 9 right here, we figured out, well, how many times does 4 go into 39? So here, I'm going to do the same exact process. I'm going to see, well, how many times does this x right here go into this 4x squared right here? So let's go ahead and do that. So this 4x squared divided by this x is going to give me 4x. So now I'm going to write up here plus 4x. By the way, if you haven't noticed, I've written the x squared so it matches up with the x squared underneath it, and I've written the x so it matches with the x underneath it. So now I need to go ahead and distribute this 4x through to the x and the minus 3. So when I distribute the 4x to the x, I get 4x squared. When I distribute the 4x to the minus 3, I get minus 12x. I'm going to subtract this entire expression, and I'm going to see what I end up getting. Well, 4x squared minus 4x squared cancels out. I get nothing. And then I'm going to do negative 7x minus negative 12x, but minus a negative turns into a positive. So this ends up becoming positive 5x. And then I'm just going to bring down this minus 1. Okay, and then I'm going to do this one last time. But this time, I'm going to try to see, well, how many times does this x go into the 5x? So I'm going to divide 5x by x, and I end up getting 5. So I'm going to write a plus 5 up here because it's a positive 5. And now I'm going to multiply and distribute that 5 through to everyone. So 5 times x is 5x, and then 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. But I need to subtract the entire thing. Well, 5x minus 5x cancels out. I get nothing. But negative 1 minus negative 15 means negative 1 plus 15. So this ends up becoming 14. This right here is my remainder. How do I know this is my remainder? Because x cannot go into 14. I can't do any more division. So what does this mean? This means that my answer is going to be equal to 3x squared plus 4x plus 5 with a remainder of 14 out of whatever I'm dividing by. Because again, what we're doing here is we're taking this entire expression right here and we're just dividing it by x minus 3. So that means that x minus 3 is going to be my denominator of my remainder, just like up here when we did this right here, when we divided by 4 and we had a remainder of 3, it was 3 out of 4. So a couple pieces of information here. I've rewritten this so that it's a little bit neater so you can see what's going on here. This expression right here is your dividend. This expression right here is your divisor. So whatever you're dividing by is called your divisor. This expression right here is called your quotient. And your quotient is just your answer, okay? And then this expression right here is called your remainder. So this here we're going to say is your remainder. All right, one last thing that I want to say about this question is because we're dividing by this expression right here, we can also take the quotient, multiply it by the divisor, and then add the remainder onto it. And it should equal our dividend, what we were dividing everything by. And so let's just double check to make sure that this is true. So I distribute the 3x squared through to everybody here. I get 3x cubed minus 9x squared. Then I distribute the 4x through. So 4x times x is 4x squared. Multiply it to the negative 3, I get minus 12x. Distribute the 5 through, you get positive 5x and negative 15. And then I'm going to add 14 to that. So now I'm just going to collect like terms. Nothing's like this 3x cubed, so I just copy it down. These two expressions go together, I get minus 5x squared. These two expressions go together, I get minus 7x. These two go together, I get minus 1, and check. It's exactly what our original problem had, okay? Okay, and just a reminder to write any questions down that you have as we're going through this. So the next one, determine the quotient and remainder for this expression right here, and it says it's going to be a little bit trickier. Let's talk about why. So we know that this is our dividend. That's going to go inside right here. It's what's being divided. And then we know that this is the divisor, so we're going to put the divisor on the outside. Now, the reason why this is tricky is because we went from x to the power of 3 to x to the power of 1, and we can't do that. We need to put a placeholder inside of here to preserve all the possible exponents that we have from 3 all the way down to an exponent of 0, okay? So because there is no x squared, we're going to put 0x squared as our placeholder right here, okay? And then we're going to copy the rest down, minus 11x and then minus 9, okay? And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. So right here, when I do this division, I'm going to see, well, how many times does 2x go into 4x cubed? So let's go ahead and divide that out on the side. Just a heads up, you do not have to do this work on the side. I'm just showing you this work until you feel comfortable to be able to go straight to saying that this is just 2x squared. Now I'm going to distribute this 2x squared to the 2x. I get 4x cubed. Also distribute it to the minus 3. I get negative 6x squared right here. Now I want to subtract this whole entire expression. So 4x cubed minus 4x cubed will cancel out. But here I've got 0x squared minus negative 6x. The minus and negative turns into a positive. So this becomes positive 6x squared. And then I'm just going to bring down the minus 11x and the minus 9. Okay? Now that I've done that, the next thing I need to do is see, well, how many times does this 2x go into the 6x squared? So I'm going to do the same thing on the side. Again, you do not have to show this workout, but this is for you to understand where this is coming from. So when I divide this out, I end up getting 6 divided by 2 is 3, x squared divided by x is just x. And it's a positive 3x, so we're going to write plus 3x right here. And now I'm going to distribute that 3x through. Well, 3x times 2x is 6x squared, and then 3x times negative 3 is going to be minus 9x. Subtract that whole entire thing. 6x squared minus 6x squared is nothing. It cancels out. It subtracts out. And then I've got negative 11x minus negative 9x, which is going to end up being a negative 2x. And then I'm going to bring down this minus 9. Okay? And then lastly, I need to figure out, well, how many times does this 2x right here go into this negative 2x right here? So I'm going to divide that out on the side. Again, not necessary if you don't need to show that work. And I end up getting negative 1. So here I'm going to say negative 1, and then I'm going to distribute that negative 1 through. So negative 1 times 2x is minus 2x. Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. But I need to subtract that. Now, when I have minus 2x minus a negative 2x, it becomes plus 2x. The negative and the positive cancel, so the 2x is gone. And then I'm going to do negative 9 minus positive 3 minus a positive becomes a negative. So it's like I'm doing negative 9 minus 3, which ends up becoming negative 12. Negative 12 cannot be divided by 2x, so that's as far as I can go. So what does that tell me? It tells me that my quotient is going to be this 2x squared plus 3x minus 1 that I have up here. And that my remainder, because it's asking for the quotient and the remainder, is going to be this negative 12 that I have right here. Okay, people, one last one that I'd like to do with you. For this last one right here, I'd like you to take a look at this dividend and notice how it's not in descending order. We're starting with x to the power of 4, then we're going to the power of 2, then we're going to the power of 3. We don't even have a power to 1, and then we go to our constant term. So this isn't going to be really helpful in this format. So I'm going to rewrite this in a format that will be helpful. So highest exponent is 3x to the power of 4. Then I've got minus 2x to the power of 3. Then I've got a positive 12x squared. But then I have nothing. I have no x's after that. And then I have a minus 5. And that's getting divided by, right here, this x squared. And then there's no x's, so I'm going to say plus 0x minus 1. Now, there is a way to get around not putting the 0x right here, but you can work on that when you have time in class to practice. But for the purposes of this video, I want to keep it as is. So I'm going to say x squared plus 0x minus 1, and it's going to go into 3x to the power of 4 minus 2x cubed plus 12x squared plus 0x minus 5. Okay? So I've got 3x to the power of 4, and I want to know how many times x squared will go into 3x to the power of 4. So I guess when I say how many times, I'm pretty much saying what times x squared would give me 3x to the power of 4. And that would have to be 3x to the power of 2. And I'm going to put that on top of the x squared term. So if you notice right here, 3 times 1 would give me the 3, and then x squared times x squared would give me the x to the power of 4. So this right here, I'm going to distribute this through. Now I'm going to do it 3 times. So here I've got 3x to the power of 4 plus 0x cubed minus 3x squared. But I need to subtract all of this. 3x to the power of 4 minus 3x to the power of 4 cancels. It subtracts out. Negative 2x cubed minus 0x cubed is just still negative 2x cubed. 12x squared minus negative 3x squared ends up becoming a positive 15x squared. Then I'm going to bring down everything, the 0x and the minus 5. Okay? Now, I want to figure out what times x squared is going to give me negative 2x to the power of 3. So that answer right here would be a negative 2x, because if I were to distribute this through, I would get negative 2, and then x squared times x is x to the power of 3. And then I'm going to distribute it to the 0x, and then I'm also going to distribute it to the negative 1, so this becomes a positive 2x, and then I'm going to subtract this whole entire thing. Well, if you look right here, negative 2x cubed minus negative 2x cubed becomes a positive 2x cubed. That subtracts out. It adds up to give us nothing. Then I've got 15x squared minus 0 would still give me 15x squared. And then I've got 0x minus positive 2x, which means it's just 0x minus 2x, and that would give me minus 2x. And then I will bring down this negative 5. I'm almost there, people. Now I need to see, well, what do I need to multiply x squared by to get this 15x squared? And the answer is 15. So again, I'm going to multiply 15 by x squared, multiply the 15 by 0x, which is nothing, and then multiply the 15 by the minus 1, and then subtract that all out. 15x squared minus 15x squared goes away. Negative 2x minus 0x is negative 2x. And then negative 5 minus negative 15, negative 5 plus 15, so I get a positive 10 here. Now, because the exponent on this x right here is smaller than the exponent on my divisor right here, This is as far as I can go. So that means that if I were to divide this whole thing out, if I were to do this entire set of division right here, I would end up getting this quotient that I got up here. With a remainder of negative 2x plus 10, but that's out of x squared. I don't need to write the 0x in my final answer, minus 1. And that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you in class. Bye.